So we're getting pretty classic up in here because it's getting pretty spooky this time of year out there. In Haddonfield, Illinois, on October 30th, 1978, an absolute unit would escape from the asylum that he was housed in after taking out his sister 15 years prior. Known as Michael Myers, it seems like absolutely nothing is capable of stopping him. Not to mention the god-awful cult timeline backing him up, like the name of all that is holy was that. The question is though, is that really reality? Can nothing truly stop Michael, and more importantly, how has he not been scooped up by some organization in order to figure out how he actually does what he does? Well, join me, a random guy on the internet telling you today how to actually stop Michael Myers. A little outside of what I normally do, but every once in a while I'll do this. And what better time than with Halloween right around the corner? Also, quick heads up, YouTube purged subs again because it's fashionable, and as of right now, it's in. So if you want to check if you're unsubbed, it's actually very depressing how many comments I get confirming that. Very cash money, YouTube. So to kick this thing off, I had a question a few days ago. Well, I call it a question, but really it was just a massive read in the comments. I cover summaries because not everyone has watched what you have. Believe it or not, random dude, you may not be the center of the universe. So shade aside, let's get down to the breakdown of what exactly happens and why we should ignore the cult timeline, because God. But I unfortunately do have to include it because it's canon. And also, I don't have to bring up the existence of the third movie, because even by me saying that, that song is now stuck in my head. We kick off our story with this absolute cherry opening known as Halloween theme, which you can probably hear it in your head right now, don't lie. It's Halloween night, 1963, which arguably must have been horrible because the 67 Impala would have to be waited for another 4 years. Tragic. I've been talking about cars a lot on this channel, no idea why. But as we pull up to the Myers house, it's extra spooky out here. And what is this? Teenagers getting frisky? Not on Michael's watch. You see, from a young age, Michael believed in complete celibacy. Hashtag virginity rocks. Heading inside through a door which was just left open, and I mean, I get it was the 60s, but, you know, there could be a knife-wielding murderer out there, you don't know. So Michael grabs a knife and then heads upstairs as the Minuteman is already dressed and then heading out. Like, I actually kind of feel bad for this dude. Anyhow, as he goes upstairs, he puts on his mask and approaches his sister, which has to be blurred. And then he just begins stabbing, and she does very little to stop it. So then he heads outside to his parents with a knife covered in blood as the origin story is set up. 15 years later at Smith's Grove Sanitarium, it's an extra spooky night with extra spooky Dr. Loomis and a nurse who apparently got called in from a Halloween party where she's literally dressed as a nurse. For real though, if you're in the healthcare field and you go as a doctor and you're literally a doctor, you're a huge dork. So they talk about Michael and how he doesn't talk, but Dr. Loomis doesn't buy the catatonia, and that he's being transferred for his court hearing, and then we get the most hilarious comment from the nurse. Since when do they let patients wander around? Well, at night, in a thunderstorm. I don't know, gal, it's probably a real head scratcher. Dr. Loomis then tells her to pull up to the main gate, as clearly there's been an escape plan hatched. As the nurse sits there, a man jumps onto the car, and we all know who he is, as he puts his hand through and grabs her. She does the smart thing and then bolts out of the car, which is then stolen. The next morning, we are back in old Haddonfield. It's Halloween! Spooky happenings! We meet our main woman, Laurie Strode, as she strides to school. Of course, it was back in 1978, so by the past tense law, she actually strode to school. Alright, so now that at least half of the people have stopped watching this video because of that joke, she's told to drop off the key at the Myers place as the real estate people are coming in to look at the house later. And fun fact, did you know Halloween was actually filmed in South Pasadena in Southern California? So all those leaves that you see on the ground are probably brought in, as it likely wasn't very cold either. And I'm going to be doing that throughout this basically breakdown for no other reason than I want to, and it's interesting. So as the kid runs up, Laurie goes to drop the key off, but someone else is already inside. The kid warns her to stay away from the house as a guy comes out in a boiler suit. So we now jump over to Dr. Loomis and another guy talking about where Michael went. Guy says that he can't drive a car, and that's based on what exactly? Well, maybe actually the manual transmission would be my guess. But as Laurie sits there in class looking out, Michael is standing out there like a total weirdo and nobody notices him. So the kid from earlier is getting your standard bullying in the 70s, and as one runs off, he's grabbed by Michael as he begins stalking the other kid back to his abode. And you know, I'm really starting to think that all the warnings we got from our parents is literally because of this movie. So here's another fun fact. You see Dr. Loomis on the phone here, they mention how he's only about 150 miles away from Haddonfield, but there are no mountains like this anywhere near where the fictional town would be. Another point to show that it was actually filmed in California. But Loomy Boy here tells them to be ready for Michael as he comes out and then spots a truck from Phelps' garage as well as Michael's clothing. What luck to stop here of all places. There's also a guy who got in the weeds, but then nobody finds him, so guess he's just on the missing persons list. So Laurie and her friend now begin to walk home. They talk about random stuff as Laurie turns around because she forgot her chemistry book as Michael drives by, with one of the friends yelling something as he stops, debating on totally ending this woman's whole career. As they drop off Linda, Michael is then behind a bush and backs up. And right as Annie goes to see who it is, you can actually see some smoke pass in front of the camera. This was John Carpenter smoking. He says he was standing a little too close to the camera and it got captured. Why they couldn't have just done a reshoot? Beyond me. But now know that that's taking up some neurons in your brain. Anyhow, Annie then calls over to Linda and says that it's no one. I mean, like he couldn't have just walked off or something. So here's another thing. Because this movie was shot as like one long thing, the roads and sidewalks will frequently go from wet to dry. Like here, when she gets home, as apparently there's been a downpour, but when she was walking there was no downpour. And the kids are already out trick-or-treating right now as Laurie then heads inside and spots Michael out in the laundry, standing there, menacingly. When she leaves from her house again later, the roads are also dry again. They went from wet to dry, and now it's shady to sunny. Classic. But Annie has come to pick her up. At this point, Dr. Loomis heads to the graveyard with a gravekeeper. The headstone of Michael's sister has been desecrated and stolen, indicating that he has come home. As Annie and Laurie drive along, they start getting tailed by Michael's car, who breaks off as they run into Annie's dad. And they were puff passing something, and like he can't smell that in the car. The store has been broken into as a mask, a knife, and some rope have been stolen. Dr. Loomis now arrives to talk to the sheriff as Michael drives by. And good lord, how long have they been driving for? The sun is already setting. So now apparently it's night. Like really, I want to know, how long did it take them to drive? How big is Haddonfield supposed to be? Well, we'll get into that in a few minutes. But it doesn't matter, as they arrived at their apparent long-awaited destination as Annie then heads inside the house with Michael following. The sheriff, after having listened to Dr. Loomis, goes to check out the old Myers place. Heading inside, it's a little worse for wear, and there's a dog on the floor. Apparently Michael had been eating on its body. Heading upstairs, it continues to be 3 spooky 5 me. They go to Judith's room, where she was taken out, and as they stand there, a rock gets thrown through the window, scaring Dr. Loomis, making him pull out his force multiplier. He launches into the story of Michael, the ugliest boy in town, and if you get that joke, then we actually have a similar pattern of watching things. Anyways, emotionless and capable of horrible things, this informs the sheriff of the gravity of the situation and why this is probably not going to be a good time. That night, as Laurie babysits the kid that got bullied earlier, a quadruped named Lester comes in as she starts talking to Laurie. Lindsay has no interest in stopping Lester's barking as Tommy screeches about someone being outside of Lindsay's house. As Laurie looks, she sees nobody from a cursory glance. Like maybe a bit more investigation might be necessary. I mean, I don't know, you could go outside or something. So as Annie takes every opportunity to just completely strip because she got butter on her shirt, I have no idea what this... You know what? Now, we all know what this is about. So Michael almost gets caught peeping Tom style as Lester finds Michael but then gets got, which is the saddest ending in the movie. Rip the quadruped. Also, you know how this movie was directed by John Carpenter? Well, old Johnny can't resist a callback as he has The Thing playing for Laurie and Tommy, which he also directed. And I cover that movie as well. So if you want to go see that, it's somewhere in this playlist. So as Annie now goes outside to the laundry room, still those things weren't in the house back in the day, which just blows my mind. Michael then stands outside and locks Annie inside, or she locks herself inside. It's not really said. Annie then calls out for Lindsay, and there's no way she's gonna hear you, bro. But Michael is inside the room with Annie. So she crawls out the window in the worst way possible, and then Lindsay gets a call and then goes to find Annie, basically help me step bro style in the window. Heading back inside, everyone leaves the doors open, like a ridiculous amount. So Paul's on his way over as Annie does the mature thing and dumps the kid off at Tommy's house so Laurie can watch her and she can go hang out with a dude named Paul. So Laurie agrees to watch Lindsay because they are enthralled with the TV anyhow. As Annie goes back inside to find her keys, she sings about Paul and then gets into the car, which is all fogged up, which usually indicates that somebody is in the car. As she gets grabbed and choked out, she gets a knife to the back and taken out by old Mickey. Why am I calling all of the characters this? I have no idea. As Tommy gets up to scare Lindsay, he spots Michael outside carrying Annie's body back into the house. Laurie clearly doesn't believe him, and I mean, call the cops, get it checked out. Her old man is the sheriff, that's worth investigating, but I guess not. So now Loomis has become the hunter. Standing behind a bush as a kid gets dared to go into Michael's house, he scares them off, but then he gets scared, so he becomes a hunted. And in a modern movie, this would have been a jump scare with jump scare music 100% of the time, but they refrain from doing it, which I appreciate. The sheriff doesn't believe Loomis at this point, but decides to stay anyhow, just in case all these kids running around are lined up for a slaughterhouse. So now we see a Ted Bundy look-alike with Linda. They're hammered and driving that sick van. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that thing actually is pretty sweet. They use some tiger paintings though, or like a wizard on a mountain shooting out lightning bolts. Linda and this dude named Bob get right down to business, activating the almonds of Michael, who begins watching them. And if there's one thing a 70s and or 80s villain can't stand, is premarital relations. They're here just to protect your chastity. Linda now calls Laurie to see what happened with Annie, but was really more focused on what's up with Lindsay. So here's the thing. The parents at some point have to come back. And then when they find these two knocking boots in their house, they don't even, do they know them? I don't know. It's a little strange. So then Bobby takes the phone off the hook. So when someone calls, as they keep going at it, that means you can literally hear them. Like, my next question is, why couldn't they hear that? Anyways, Bob then goes downstairs to get some beer for them as Linda stays upstairs, which the door is open again. Bob opens a door and gets grabbed by Michael, lifting him off the ground and impaling him through the gut, which that's not an instant kill. That's a start wildly screaming because that's incredibly painful, and then you bleed out over 20 minutes. I mean, he may have hit the abdominal aorta, but I severely doubt it. Anyways, so Michael now decides to play along for reasons unknown with a sheet over his head and Bob's glasses. Linda asks him a bunch of questions, but he doesn't answer, as she calls Lori. It takes her out with a telephone cord before she can actually speak to Lori. Lori then calls back but gets no answer, so she becomes a little concernicus. The kids are now asleep in bed, so it seems like the perfect time to head over there with no help to get got. Loomis, meanwhile, spots his car finally. How long has he been standing in that spot? Beyond me. He now realizes that Michael is 100% in the building, and he's ready for a chutes and ladders match with what remains of the family. Lori now does a smart thing and heads over to Annie's as all of her friends, well, they're disappearing or seem to be missing in some form or fashion, and instead of calling the cops, she's gonna be the one to go figure it out. So as she goes up to the door, she calls out to them, but it's hard to answer when your body's out of blood. Heading around back, she finds another open door. Bruh, Michael doesn't believe in AC or heating bills. Getting inside, there's no lights and nobody to be found. She does, however, hear a thumping noise. Heading upstairs, she opens the door to find a gravestone for Judith Myers placed at the head of the bed where Annie now lays. And Annie is just completely gone. Now, that's the point where you, run out of the room. So then Bob makes an appearance as he swings by, with Linda having the door open near her, saying, "What's up, player?" Wow, that was dated. Michael now comes from a darkened room and takes a stab at Lori, who then falls and astonishingly doesn't break anything on the stairs. She does, however, injure herself a little bit, but look at that, the glass door is finally closed. She breaks the glass and then moves the rake. Lori now takes the classic mistake of activating people's bystander effect. She runs outside on the lawns and yells help, which human psychology shows doesn't work. People will literally stand there and listen to you getting got if you're yelling help. What you should do is either yell fire, as people love watching stuff burn, or point specifically to anyone in the area, like when she runs up to someone's front porch, to tell them specifically to help you. Name something about them like, "Hey guy in red shirt, there's someone after me and I need you to help me." Then because they're wearing a red shirt, they get got while you run away. It's pure science. So anyhow, nobody believes her because they assume it's a Halloween prank, bro. So she runs back to the other house where the children are to try to get in. Like, just keep running. It's not a finite area, and you aren't really even that far away from help. So Tommy lets Lori in, but the phone isn't working, and the freaking window was left open. What's the deal here? Lori is able to hit Michael in the jugular with a knitting thing, I don't know what it's called, which knocks him out momentarily. She then sits there with his knife and then puts it down, which was the only counter she could have possibly had to this dude. Loomis is now on a midnight stroll as he almost gets hit by a police car because he's in the road rather than on that nice sidewalk right there. Like really, the actual relief you see on his face, the actor's face, when he doesn't get hit, made me laugh. Like, believe it or not, that was actually a close call. Lori at this point goes to get the kids as Michael has showed back up with his knife because she was dumb and left it behind. She opens the window to the outside to make it look like she jumped, as Michael then goes to check the closet because he's completely unfazed by that chump prank. So breaking in, he turns on the light, which this part also makes me laugh. Because the light was never actually supposed to be turned on in the first place, he has to reach up and turn it back off while they were filming, making it look like he's trying to attack. Why didn't they just refilm this? Don't ask questions you don't want to know the answers to. Lori now gets him with a coat hanger style on the shoulder before hitting him with his own knife. Time for that double and triple tap, but that won't happen for like another 35 years. Well, actually probably longer. Once again, she drops the knife with complete un-Chad-like behavior. Some Chadness though is kept as she sends the kids out, but turns her back on the guy who she doesn't know if he's gone yet. She already hit him in the neck with a knitting knife, or knitting thing, I don't know what the crap that is, but now it's like, oh yeah, he's done, don't worry about it. The kids then run out, and Loomis is looming nearby, which gets his attention. But here's the thing, he knows that Michael Myers was walking distance from Strode's house. And Loomis has been walking presumably not that long. So, why did it take Annie literally all afternoon to nighttime to drive from picking up Lori at her house to getting to the kid's house to babysit? The distance doesn't seem that great. Maybe I'm just nitpicking. I mean, obviously, they do have magical drying sidewalks. So obviously Michael gets back up and continues his attack on Lori as Loomis arrives just in time as Lori pulls Michael's mask off, which is when we get to actually see his face. Loomis then hits him with 6 shots to the chest as he falls out of the second-story window and falls to the ground. Loomis confirms to Lori it was the boogeyman, and as Loomis goes to look at his good work, Michael has gotten back up and left, pretty much solidifying his absolutely ridiculous healing factor. He could be anywhere, even in your own house. Spooky! And also back in the 70s, this was like a super scary thing. Nowadays, it's oversaturated that obviously you just can't take out the main villain, but back then it was like, oh my god, he's not dead. Alright, so let's be real here. There are several movies in this franchise with diverging and converging storylines. So here's the gist of it all. In the second movie, it's confirmed that Lori is Michael's sister, but Michael is apparently ended in a great ball of fire, which moves on to the third movie, which is a god-awful mess of painfully annoying music, and it's face melting. It's because Halloween wasn't really supposed to be just about Michael Myers. It's supposed to actually be an anthology, but movies 4 through 6 bring in a Cult of Thorn. The Cult of Thorn is based on the visions that Michael had as a kid, where he saw a Celtic boy in the woman he loved because she rejected him because of his deformities. When the town caught wind that this had happened, they had a shaman curse his soul, and as a result, it was forced to wander the earth and never go to heaven or hell. Basically, he couldn't die, which is a little strange that a town that believes in heaven would have a shaman and then enlist the help of that shaman. Those are like 2 totally different things. The Curse of Thorn was added to this, that if you had this Celtic symbol, you had to destroy your whole family in order to stop the community at large from suffering a horrible fate. This gave you the powers like Michael had in order to do so, and in the end, when he was finally subdued, a cult member showed up to free him, which Michael in the 6th movie then takes out the cult, potentially ending the entire curse. Maybe. We don't actually know. Then the reboots take it back to a more human-based villain. He's not invincible, but stronger and faster than a normal person, but there is no cult and magical healing or teleportation or really any of that. So because of this, it's really kind of a choose-your-own-adventure style things moving forward with this video. Do we pretend it's magic, or do we pretend it's not dumb? Well, let's do both, because why not? I mean, that's what we're here for, right? So first thing that we need to do to start this, really, is seeing what Michael Myers is actually capable of so that you know what you're dealing with, because step 1 of taking down something that would completely wreck you, whether it be Predator or a Terminator, is you need to know what, if any, weaknesses it may have. Michael Myers has very few weaknesses, and the one that he does has requires you to get in so close, you're not likely to survive the encounter. I don't make the rules, I just enforce them. So what exactly are you going to be contending with? Well, it's not looking good for your normal, non-enhanced Homo sapiens body. The first thing to understand about Michael is the human element does still exist within him. And animals, anger and rage are actually quite useful as long as you don't completely become unhinged. But really, that's only because you can be damaged. When an animal essentially sees red, whether that's human or otherwise, as long as the other animal that's seeing red isn't seeing red and isn't trained in martial arts, it gives that other animal that's in an enraged state a better chance of winning the fight. As with all fight or flight interactions, things like adrenaline get thrown into the mix, allowing you to make snap decisions quicker, hit harder, and run faster, all while ignoring damage for a short time with your own body. Although once the adrenaline wears off, you'll feel all of it. Michael Myers, being human and an animal himself, possesses this. When Michael enters sort of a rage state, it's somewhat compared to having a feral mind. The more rage that builds, the angrier he gets, the more people in his way get turned into bodies, whether that be family or protectors of the family. Able to smash through walls, put his thumbs through a human skull, or lift a person up with one arm, this rage state is nothing to mess with. The counter to this is you're going to have to strike, you're going to need to hit hard and hit first. Cobra Kai. Because if you run, it enrages him. If you injure him, congrats, you've enraged him. If you hook up with your girlfriend while he stands outside watching you, he becomes enraged as well, because he was not able to reach Chad levels like you. Basically, existence of you is enraging, but anything you do is even worse. And with this rage, as stated, enhanced strength. One-on-one, an Olympic bodybuilder would lose out to Michael, which allows us to assume a few things from him. Now, this does raise a question, but we'll get there momentarily. This strength that he has does not appear to be anything that we would expect with, say, like a superhero, but it's definitely an enhanced version of human strength. In fact, I would almost compare it to something like chimp strength more than anything. If you put a bodybuilder in a ring with a chimp, the dude is getting wrecked and getting an arm ripped off in the process because chimps are insanely strong compared to us. But why is this the case? Well, longtime viewers of this channel know, but for everyone else, essentially we are blocked from accessing our full strength that we possess due to our brain's limitations on muscle contraction. If all of our muscle pulled in the same direction, we could lift 25 tons in the air. That's 50,000 pounds or 22,679 kilograms. So basically a lot of weight, but that's with no limitations, and also if our muscle was all pulling in the same direction. And with that said, there'd be no human form to speak of. However, this strength still resides in our bodies. On average, a regular person without training can access roughly 30 to 40% of their strength. In times of adrenaline release, it can go up to 60%. With a person who strength trains, however, they can access more as the mind-body connection is stronger, to which they can get to around 50 to 60% on average, with adrenaline unlocking more of their ability. But even then, we never truly access everything in the tank. I believe that Michael does, which is why nobody can actually go toe-to-toe with him, because unlike a chimp, Michael isn't dumb compared to us. Michael is actually fairly intelligent, and in some cases more intelligent than the average person. Because of Michael's ability to access all of his strength, this allows for him to pick somebody up with one arm and staple them to a wall. It also allows for him to subdue any full-grown man that attempts to counterattack, with Busta Rhymes actually attempting to go mano-a-mano with him in the remakes, holding his own for a while, at least, again, in the remake. But ultimately, you can't keep Michael down. This strength acquisition puts tremendous strain on his skeletal-muscular system, necessitating the need for some sort of healing factor in order to repair muscle that is consistently ripped from contracting as hard as it can to take down victims. And for that, we move on to the next portion, his survivability. Michael far outclasses any animal on this planet, apart from maybe a tardigrade in terms of survivability. Michael has been shot multiple times by Loomis, which would have hit critical organs such as the heart and lungs, and even destroyed his spine. A firing squad of officers lit him up, which he crawled away from. He's been run over, blown up, engulfed in flames, stabbed in the neck by Lord knows how many things, and yet he still gets back up and continues to hunt. This gives us some clues to how his body works. Michael, to survive all of this, has two possibilities. Either it's biological and based in reality, or it's magical and supernatural. Of course, then again, the question becomes, what is supernatural, and how exactly is it not natural? If I were to somehow get someone from the 1500s to present day and turn on a TV, they would call me a witch because I'm using radio signals to turn on a TV, and they also wouldn't even understand a TV. They'd probably think it's a portal to a different part of the world. Just because we can't comprehend something currently doesn't necessarily mean it's magical and can't be understood. I'm going to blend the two for brevity's sake, but honestly, that's making the most sense to me. We know at Smith's Grove, the cult was operating out of this facility, which means they have 15 long years to experiment with Michael Myers. Now, obviously, it was a hell cult, so they were doing some pretty nefarious things. Michael's soul, or at least his body, was corrupted to the point with the Sam Hain worshipping that heaven nor hell would take him in after he apparently met his end, which forced him back into his body. But it wouldn't be enough to just force his soul energy back into his meat suit. The meat suit itself needs to be functional and survive, because if Michael is damaged to the point that his body is completely broken, then coming back into it would just leave him in a paralyzed state. The spine isn't all that strong against direct force, plus explosions would blow apart the lungs and internal organs as well due to pressure changes. So what's happening? To survive the effects, I believe the soul would have to leave his body once he's apparently subdued by some method. However, after a short while, it comes back with consciousness remaining intact, but while he's gone, the body repairs itself from all previous injuries and muscle tears or bone breaks from hunting the family. This increased mitotic division of cells may actually require so much energy that it robs the brain of energy for the time being, which then renders him unconscious, which, if you really want to take a more secular approach on it, that could explain why he lays there for a while. But either way, this repair process is critical for his movement and continued survival, because as he lays there healing, most leave him alone for the time being, just letting him heal. Speaking of the brain shutting down, I briefly touched on it earlier, but let's talk about the intelligence just for a moment. A lot of people assume Michael doesn't speak much, so there must not be a functional brain in there, and that because he appears possessed, it's really not him at the wheel. Well, according to the lore in our boy here, Michael from the drop was witnessing things at the age of 6 years old through nightmares associated with the supernatural. And this is what would ultimately have an impact on him, driving him to do the things that he did. That said, this in no way means intellectually there's a deficit there. Now, given his time in the sanitarium, they were likely not educating him in any capacity as it was a cult, but likely they were teaching him methods of hunting down his family. So, while he can't probably read, he can think, rationalize, plan, and stalk. The stalking is the important factor here that denotes his intelligence, because of this enhanced tracking skill. Michael, whether it is supernatural or just an internal bloodlust, has the ability to track down his family no matter where they are. In fact, Lori changed her name and moved from Illinois to California, and yet Michael was still able to track her down and go after her. This is like detective level intelligence and finding the right avenues in order to locate someone. And because this was the remake, that means Michael was biological and not a product of the cult. And finally, the last major skill point that Michael has is his insane ability to stealth. Basically being the Desmond Miles of a supernatural horror icons, Michael can appear anywhere around you quietly, but if you have a line of sight on him, he will only walk towards you. A case has been made that Michael can teleport, but it's never been confirmed, nor would it need to be. Honestly, it just seems like due to Michael's super strength, speed likely comes into play, and with that, the insanely high levels of stamina that he's capable of. And then, as soon as he's out of your line of sight, he can likely hustle to where he needs to get to faster than you would be able to run. He chooses to walk towards you as a scare tactic, as Michael does enjoy toying with people before taking them out, sort of like when he wears the sheet over his body to freak out Linda before ending her. So I seriously doubt anything really has to be done concerning whether he can teleport out of areas, and the idea that backs up this mentality is even if you take the cult timeline, a cult member had to spring him from a jail cell of the police station that he was truly trapped in there. In the non-cult timeline, Michael is a super strong human, meaning that he cannot teleport anywhere that he wants to go. So either way, it doesn't look like he's teleporting. So with all that said, you've got your work cut out for you. How do you stop something that is stronger than you, has limitless stamina, enhanced strength, is intelligent or potentially more intelligent than you, and can literally rip you apart if he gets his hands on you? Well, there's a quote, and I can't remember who said it, but superior thinking has always outclassed superior force. You're gonna have to use your anxiety meat in your skull. Michael will walk towards you. He can be halted momentarily by extreme force, and the odds are the police and National Guard isn't going to help you. You wouldn't want to jeopardize your friends and family in the fight, so you're gonna have to do this alone. So what exactly are you supposed to do? Well, it's time to get really cracked out. When dealing with something that amounts to a Shy Guy SCP version of a human that is slower, it's better to err on the side of extreme focus and agitation. It may age you a little bit, but this seems like the best way to go about it. Now, disclaimer, I'm not saying to take these things outside of fighting Michael Myers, so don't do this. I'm telling you, don't say Roanoke said it was okay, because I'm not saying it is. Now, I bet you think I'm going to say meth. Wrong! If you can get your hands on, say, some ADHD medication, that's going to be your best bet. It's a stimulant for the brain and will help you stay focused and not fall asleep for several hours. If you have the luxury of knowing Michael Myers is close, then it will be possible that this can remain effective during the attack. If not, understanding that taking more of a dosage after the initial dose causes it to lose effectiveness. Once you have done this, it will allow for you to start in on the next part of the plan. Take your car to the nearest huge abandoned parking lot. Because of recent events in 2020, there's actually a lot of failed neighborhoods, so you might be able to find one. But you're going to want an abandoned place if you can, as Michael will not likely attack you as openly if you're going to like a Walmart. That's pretty much shown by how he follows Annie and Lori in the car. But this also is not to say that he won't, but then you're going to have stuff on you that you're probably going to get checked out by the cops, which also isn't a great plan. Once there, you wait. You may also attempt to track him down yourself, as the best defense is a good offense, but you definitely don't want to go into any buildings after him. If you are successful in finding him, return back to the large open area and exit your vehicle. You're going to need several things for this encounter, as Michael has one major flaw that you're going to need to exploit, because if you can't do that, you're screwed. Remember, you're just a regular person. I've seen other videos talking about, oh, well, you could get yourself some access to this crazy amount of acid that's regulated and you're not going to get. Or why don't you go to a stadium and then have the lights turned on? That's not going to happen. You're on your own, as with most things in these movies, so it's going to be things that you have access to on a day-to-day basis. If you weren't successful in finding Michael Myers, stay in the abandoned parking lot and set up lights, because nightfall is the most likely time that Michael is going to show up to just completely Shrek you. If you have access to rounded razor wire, put that around your sight, though it's probably not likely. So if not, then you're going to need to stay extra vigilant. Get on top of your vehicle so that you have access to 360 degrees of sight. The larger the parking lot, the better. It can also be a low field or in general any open area which you can see at least several hundred feet. When Michael finally shows up to clap those cheeks, remember, he will not break character and will remain extremely slow. Now, the issue is, if you aren't vigilant enough, Michael can move incredibly stealthily, meaning he can get to the car that you currently are on, pull you down, and take you out in a secluded place where nobody's going to find your body for months, so it's game over at that point. Hence why the razor wire may be incredibly important, but again, not everyone's going to have access to that. And that is why the ADHD medication is to give you that extra edge. Once he is in line of sight, honestly, it's not that hard taking him down. From what we have seen, damage to his body that would take out a normal person is capable of putting him down for a few seconds. The more damage he endures, the longer he stays down. But doing things like dropping dynamite down a mine shaft to blow him up isn't enough. You need to maintain eyesight on him, as stopping him for even a few seconds requires a lot of force, and if you look away, it's enough to lose him. So much like Clayton Carbine says, practice reloading. What I would say would be the best thing that you're capable of getting that isn't locked away in some armory is anything that can throw a 7.62 round down range. This is completely capable of being picked up today and has ammo readily available. Once you get that, Michael is going to drop, but you don't have time to celebrate. There is one thing that appears to be able to overcome Michael's healing factor, although I severely doubt it's going to take him out, and should this issue ever be rectified, he's going to get back up and come after you. And this is where the next steps come into play. After he drops, do not stop firing. If you must reload, keep eyesight, reload, and keep going as you approach. Once you have gotten to him, considering Michael forcibly changed clothes with another man in order to not get his brain case separated from his meat mech, it can be assumed that this is what works. Using an axe, a machete, or anything that is sharp that's only going to take about one swing because you may not get another, you need to do this quick. In separating the two parts, Michael's healing factor will not be able to overcome this hit. However, his body is still very much so alive, but nothing is at the helm. And this is also why it's important to do this in a secluded area, because again, anyone that sees this is going to call the cops. Michael is going to get put in a bag with his head, and invariably it will reconnect, and you'll be in a jail cell and he will come after you. Once this is done, comes the final step in the plan. What you're going to need for this is concrete and something to break Michael up, if you know what I'm saying. You know, return him to the point before the factory assembled him. Once he is in pieces, the most dangerous part is coming up, because you're going to need to keep a specific piece with you, which is the head. The legs, the arms, the main portion of the body need to be encased in concrete and buried, and not all in one area. It needs to be a process that's going to take you several hours to complete, so bring a snack. You need it to be spread out as much as you can, as there's less chance of the pieces being reassembled by any cult or any officers who are curious. And remember, he still looks human. It's in the law's best interest to figure out who did it and find all the missing pieces. So man, this is getting pretty dark. Once all the pieces are scattered as far as you can get them without the pieces being too close that you don't get spontaneous healing in your vehicle, you have to keep the head. Now here's the issue. You don't know exactly what this thing can do. If it really is a part of the cult may in fact know where it is and come looking for it. Because of this, it's in your best interest to send it somewhere that even the cult can't retrieve it. But where is that? Well, a volcano would probably be the easiest place, but even then there's no guarantee this will end Michael, and it's not deep enough. So you need something worse. You need the bottom of the ocean. Now, here's where things get difficult again. Because you being the average person can't just schedule an excursion out to the super deep area of the ocean like Point Nemo, but you can definitely still schedule something to go a little ways out without too much issue. Encase Michael's head in more concrete back at your home. Don't get bitten or anything, because you can assume it's like a snake head. And once encased in concrete, it's going to be incredibly heavy. If you can, put it in a safe. Once there, you now need to book the boat. You're going to need to, first and foremost, it has to be sketchy. Someone who doesn't care what you're throwing overboard. And second, there's going to need to be a point far enough out that you can reach that boat is capable of getting to, which is the continental shelf. This may require a little bit of money, but it's likely achievable if you look hard enough. Once you've gotten there, dump it. Now the issue is, all of Michael is still alive. Don't think for a second that he's completely done. Over the centuries, the safe will rust away to nothing. The concrete will break up, the ground will be pushed up, and things will change, potentially allowing for the parts of Michael to be found in astonishingly good condition, which will invariably pique the interest of the people in the future who may try to piece him back together, and boom, he's back. But you'll be long gone by then, and then it won't really be your issue. It may be the issue of like your great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren, but I mean, hey, they could probably send him into the freaking sun at that point, ending the issue permanently. And considering that's a lot of generations away, there's probably like hundreds of kids by that point, as long as you reproduce. Or you may choose a life of celibacy to end everything permanently. Who knows? It's up to you, dude. I'm gonna have kids, and then I'm gonna like write in a notebook cryptically about how to like end this thing. I'll be like, hey, by the way, I did this. Good luck, future children. But that's so how you, the average person without access to ridiculous like super acids or football stadiums or a rocket heading into space, because again, let's be real, you would totally be on your own with this, and just like everyone else's protectors, they fall after being brought in. So you don't want to lose your people, so it's best just to handle it yourself. But I want to hear what you guys think and how you would get rid of Michael Myers, because probably next year I'll be trying to overcome Jason, because these are actually really fun to do. I want to thank you guys for watching. If you enjoy this type of content, then leaving a like is appreciated as it gets it out there and lets me know that you do enjoy it. Subscribing is also a great way to stay up to date on when I post. I'll drop my Twitter, Discord, Patreon, and channel links in the description for all those interested. And speaking of patrons, I'd like to thank mine real quick. First, I'd like to thank our 2 astronauts, Lipsy Gingy and Wesley A. Weaver Jr. Thank you guys. I'd also like to thank our 2 astrophysicists, Death Dancer and Phoenix, and our scientist, Countryside Limbo. And the rest of my patrons, I thank you guys as well. Your help goes a long way towards keeping everything running, and it's running smoothly, so it's greatly appreciated. Just to let you guys know, I'm officially moving from Twitch because I don't want to build basically anything there, and I'm moving specifically to YouTube streaming, so that'll be on Roanoke Games channel. But that's gonna do it for me. I hope everyone enjoyed. Have an awesome Halloween and be safe. I'll see y'all in the next one.